Hello everybody, Jacky here, and welcome back to the BYTEMARK. Now today we are dealing with probably the final video I will be doing on the Completionist in terms of his Defend It series. Today we're looking at his horrid defense of DMC Devil May Cry. I don't even think I would qualify this as a game that he's defending, but enough talk. Let's get started.
Court is now in session. This time around, we've got another case of the Black Sheep Blues. The internet is accusing DMC Devil May Cry of being a detached, blasphemous, and overall clunky revival of a beloved series. The Completionist, on the other hand, having never played through the original DMC series, walked away with a completely different experience.
Okay, here's the thing. That's not really a good defense on his part then. If you haven't played the original, it's really kind of hard to defend the game. But I think I understand what he's saying, but let's hear him out.
Can Jirard prove to everyone that DMC Devil May Cry is actually a good game? Find out today on Defend It.
Defend it!
He's probably
Your
gonna...
Honor, with all due respect, the only thing that Ninja Theory is really guilty of is successfully reinventing this franchise, especially while introducing new gameplay elements.
There isn't all that... Okay, there's some new weapons and such, but really, come on. It didn't reinvent the series. It's not even made by the original creators. It's a reboot that nobody wanted. No. Bad points. Bad.
Please. The franchise was perfect the way it was. You don't mess with the classics. Why try to fix an already well-oiled machine?
I'm sorry, but for the most part, he's actually right in this regard. DMC 4 is one of the best Devil May Cry games ever made.
Order, Mr. Internet! As the prosecution, you need to make your argument more clear.
Absolutely, Your Honor. I will prove to you why a perfectly polished project should never be tarnished by change. The artists at Ninja Theory sure did reinvent the Devil May Cry series with this edition.
Thank you!
Into a steaming pile of pixelated poppycock. Devil May Cry used to be this dark, gritty world, a hell-on-earth concept that felt messy and bloody, but smooth and exacting at the same time. Devil May Cry has always been somewhat of a pretty bloody button masher.
But here's the thing, okay? It has always been like that, and sure, this remake of the first game pretty much has that same gameplay, and it is edgy as well, but the thing is, it's too edgy, and they changed Dante's personality.
If Tarantino and Michael Bay had an anime baby in hell, it would be Devil May Cry.
Well, they changed how he acted, basically. Tarantino and Michael Bay, I hate both of those people because they are not really good filmmakers. Well, Michael Bay is worse. Tarantino has more credibility, but I don't know. I can't really agree with that entirely.
Also would probably have like a huge head. At any rate, this artwork by Ninja Theory, headed by Alessandro Tiny, took the grit out of the series and hit us over the head with this reimagined Angel Devil concept. We get it. You got new gameplay elements that you want to show off. Does it need to look like a game that doesn't know where it belongs? I didn't know, and honestly didn't care most of the time, where the story was going because the game was unrecognizable. And speaking of unrecognizable, Dante.
The subliminal messaging is also pretty damn annoying. Also, Dante he's half human, half demon. In terms of basically having angel blood, it's hard to buy it because that wasn't in the original. It doesn't make much sense for him to have angel blood. You know what I mean?
Dante doesn't even look like Dante. With that short hair, he looks more like the lead singer of My Chemical Romance than a demon slayer.
Well, not really the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. More like the lead singer of Story of the Year, or Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. Not really My Chemical Romance.
Bring back the old Dante. If Capcom had called up Ninja Theory and asked for an easy hack and slasher, this would be the perfect product.
Another thing to note is that it's not just because of the fact that he's more of a edgy douchebag teenager this time around, an edgy emo teenage douchebag, No offense to anyone who is emo, but that's what he looks like. He looks like one of those stereotypical ones, basically. And the thing to know is that at one point in the game, Dante gets at some point has a white-haired wig that basically ends up being on his head at some point. Then he looks into a reflection of himself with it on, and then he takes it off saying, "Never in a million years," and then removes it. Which, of course, is something that pissed off lots of fans, too.
No matter what, though, it should never have been called Devil May Cry, or DMC, or I don't know, are we abbreviating or saying the whole thing? I don't even know anymore.
Basically, the game just should not be a Devil May Cry game. It should be its own game. And when I say subliminal messaging, you know how when have you all seen the movie They Live, and how the main character, played by Roddy Piper, puts on these glasses and sees evil messages over advertisements and products and such and billboards? Yeah, basically they added that here. They tried way too hard to be edgy with it.
Woo! Internet! That is a fantastic point. Beardman, I don't know how you're going to argue that one.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm just getting started. One of the biggest issues with this game was the so-called revamped gameplay.
Oh boy, here we go.
The gameplay for this installment in the franchise rendered DMC Devil May Cry just as unplayable as the terrible art direction.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Okay, the art direction for the most part is okay, but like I said, this game would have been fine if it was not a remake of the first fucking game.
In this game, Ninja Theory added a new Angel Devil element. By triggering at will between the L and R buttons, you can change Dante from Angel mode to Devil mode. In Angel mode, Dante carries the scythe looking thing called Osiris and drags an oversized axe named Arbiter in Devil mode. You can assume if you've ever played video games that the Angel mode attacks are speedy and good for area control, while the Devil mode combat is reserved for brutal power attacks meant to be landed in sequence and gain raging momentum. As cool as the idea sounds on paper, it definitely wasn't executed well by the developers. Oh yeah, and let's not forget the added realistic physics to the combat flow. Look, I get it. In real life, if you swing a sword around, your momentum will be exhausted if you change direction.
Okay, the realism aspect, I gotta admit, yeah, I forgot about that. That is an annoying aspect. But, like I said, the gameplay overall is okay. Bloody Palace mode, it's okay. But it still can't change the fact that this game does everything it can to shit on the original. Just because it adds new weapons, that's basically its way of trying to bribe players to keep on playing it. Hey, you like playing me? You like playing me? It's that's what the game is saying. Basically saying, hey, guys, you like playing me? You like playing me? Well, if you keep playing me, you'll get more cool shit. You like that, don't you?
But the fact that Dante can't relentlessly attack enemies and is halted by the exhaustion animation is exactly why fans of the franchise hated this game. Hey, Ninja Theory, the game is about angels and demons. It doesn't need to go for a realistic tone. Also, color coding the move selection felt way too constricting. I shouldn't be trying to solve a puzzle in a hack and slash. It's a hack and slash. Not to mention the leveling system for new players creates difficulty in how you spend your points. If you level up your Osiris attacks too much...
I agree, actually. Now that you mention that, onto the Osiris point, before you mention why about the Osiris points, I just want to say that, yeah, that actually is an aspect that really plagued Rise, Son of Rome, where the color coding, where you attack blue enemies with blue radiated attacks, red ones with red attacks. I get what you mean. That is pretty annoying. Come on.
Too much without accounting for your Arbiter moves, and enemies that must be killed with
let's rewind
the
that
leveling system for new players creates difficulty in how you spend your points. If you level up your Osiris attacks too much without accounting for your Arbiter moves, and enemies that must be killed with Devil Mode show up, you're in for a world of hurt. I mean, come on, Capcom. Come on, Ninja Theory. You're better than that. Why you gotta let a brother down?
That is annoying. I agree.
That was brilliant. I think everyone in this courtroom, though fake, was blessed to have heard it. I don't even think we need to hear the other argument.
Judge Cox, sir, I am not even finished. Beardman, here's the nail in the coffin.
Ooh.
One of the biggest disappointments of this game was the plot. First and foremost, DMC Devil May Cry takes place in an alternate reality.
Another thing, even though this takes place in an alternate reality, they don't even call him Mundus, and he's not a fucking big statuesque looking god, or Greek god, if you will. No, he's this bald corporate asshole boss man. I don't understand. And at one point you do face this news anchor, which is kind of inventive, but pointless.
Separate from the rest of the DMC canon. You smell that? Smells like a cop-out to me. First, if you're an up-and-coming game dev about to step up to the plate with an already well-established franchise, at least follow up with a story that the super loyal fan base will be able to hop back into easily. An alternate reality where the evil entity lives on another alternate parallel reality controlling the people in the first alternate reality through consumer luxuries is just a tad too convoluted for my tastes. Does nobody listen to the if it ain't broke, don't fix it philosophy anymore? In a world of rebirths and reboots and remakes and remasters, can somebody please just stick to the freaking script?
Instead of just trying way too hard to make this appeal to those who like subliminal messaging, who like the movie They Live. And believe it or not, They Live was actually a shit movie, but in my opinion, of course. But even though it had some good ideas, mixing They Live with Devil May Cry doesn't really work, including this alternate reality bullshit.
That's like borrowing someone's notes from class and returning them with all the answers scratched out. Ninja Theory done you dirty, Capcom. They Days of Future Pasted you. They didn't create a DMC game. They made their own hack and slash, slapped some DMC coattails on it, and rode the money train. Which obviously didn't work, as no one bought this game.
Oh yeah, another thing to note about this game. What I really like to do, even though Dante doesn't like, the whole white-haired look, I still, when I was playing it, I got the, when I used to own the game, of course, which was through a friend, and I was playing it on a friend's PS3 when he used to live with me, and basically, there was DLC, right? There's DLC of this game, surprisingly, including Virgil's Downfall, which is pitch white! It's got animation, mostly just sketches and movement and such, but nothing else. But and Virgil may have may seem to emote more in this game, but that doesn't really make the game better either. He's still 1,000 times better in the previous DMC games, that aren't this one. Okay, so another thing that I was gonna say about the DLC that I played. On my friend's PS3, when I played this, when he owned the game, of course, he used to be a fan. Now he's not. After he realized how bad it was, and well, he needed money and such. Anyway, moving on. There's DLC, and there are downloadable costumes that you can get for Dante, and one of them is the original look that you can have for him. It looks good for the most part. However, I like to put that on this Dante just to piss off the old Dante. I mean, I like to put the old Dante's clothes on this douche Dante, only so I can piss off this douche version of Dante.
We've heard a lot of, dare I say, delicious arguments from the internet, and before I move on to the completionist, I feel like we need some sort of expert, someone with the satchels to comment on this subject, so I brought the one man I trust the most, Satchbag. Please, sir, have a seat. I have a Let's Play at 5.
Of course, Your Honor. Anything I can do to help. I'm trying to be as objective and concise as possible. The crux of many of the arguments and counter-arguments surrounding DMC, especially regarding plot, can be chalked up to generational perspective. If you peek behind the curtain of the old and new Dante, you'll find almost identically marketed characters between both. The differences are solely in the packaging. You have old Dante, who's your gunslinging, pizza-ordering Clint Eastwood, that classic hero/anti-hero who wears affordable lead jeans and plays lead in just about any classic detective film or western. The new Dante might have gotten a haircut and slimmer fit jeans, but he's still speaking to a newer, younger generation with the same archetype. The new Dante is still apathetic. The new Dante is still reluctant to help others. The new Dante is still a lost romantic with mixed kid identity issues. This is a subjective argument of flavor, not character depth. Characteristically, these guys are both the lone wolf Wolverine archetype. In other words, both Dantes are equally hollow characters, and the resistance to tolerate either one prevents the player from enjoying an otherwise arguably engaging game.
Loners? I don't know about that. For the most part they are, but sometimes they do work with their allies.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Satchel. I mean, hell, I want to play the game now. All right, Beardman, you're up. What do you got?
Thanks, Your Honor. Let's blow this pixel stand. No matter what issues you may have with DMC Devil May Cry as a game, I've got some new evidence that fixes a lot of the problems that the internet has been clamoring on about. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you DMC Devil May Cry, the Definitive Edition.
Really? Gee, I wonder if you're gonna have any good defense points this time around. You probably aren't, but unlike with RE5, you actually had some decent ones. But one thing I wanted to point out, this game does have mostly bad bosses. I mean, the only one I really liked the most was that one news anchor boss, but that's about it.
This edition of the game makes use of the PS4 and Xbox One's more powerful 1080p visual engine, as well as a locked 60 FPS gameplay, make for smooth and seamless graphics and an overall rewarding experience.
It's still the same game that we're suffering through. You know that, right? That's what you play in this version. It doesn't really make from. Sure, it's a better experience, but it's still this game that we're playing, so it's not really a good argument.
Since the internet is obviously a keen fashionista, the Definitive Edition also allows character and weapon skins from previous Devil May Cry games. So you can just shut up already about his haircut and visual changes. The Definitive Edition gives you old Dante. Not to mention a slew of new game modes with great tweaks across the board.
Hey, dressing well is a kind of good manners.
Oh, that's adorable. I digress. The Definitive Edition blends the best of both worlds to create an elegant, enjoyable gameplay experience. If the haters are gonna hate, at least let them try out the new hotness before they go crapping out their mouths into forums and comment sections. People will complain that this should have been the case from launch. Yes, I see that. But even with these complaints, Capcom listened for once and improved everything so that at least nowadays, the game is a lot more attuned to what you'd like.
That is a bunch of malarkey. You can't base your entire argument on an updated version of the game.
Yes, Mr. Sportball over here does have a point.
Exactly, he does. Sorry, Jirard. Point shot down.
Okay, fine, but I really think you guys are looking at this all wrong.
Really?
The Definitive Edition improved a lot, but kept the core of what it is the same. After all, it's not like they redid everything with a totally different studio. This is less Spider-Man reboot and more Star Wars Trilogy remastered. The same people creating the game that they would have and should have had technology at the time been permitting. But still, I see your point.
You've barely seen the tip of my point.
That's gross. Even ignoring the rad updates and gorgeous mechanics of the Definitive Edition, DMC Devil May Cry is not the moldering piece of white dog crap the internet is so fond of making it out to be. Let's talk about those Angel and Devil modes you hate so much. What better way to reinvent the hacker slasher wheel on the 5th installment in a new franchise than to create new weapons and attack modes with varied dynamics? We talked about this last time with Sonic Unleashed and the Werehog levels. The slower, more hard-hitting Devil mode juxtaposed against the faster, more elegant Angel mode, which allows players to move outside the provided.
I'm sorry. I know you have a point here, but it kind of sounds valid, kind of, but it really isn't all that valid in my opinion. Just because it added some extra modes and weapons doesn't mean anything. It's still playing through the reboot that isn't canon to the original DMC series. No, you're not making any sort of good stance here. Just because it has some new stuff doesn't mean shit. We still have to suffer with this Dante. Who's a fucking asshole? I don't care what Satchel says. Fuck this Dante.
Mechanics of the original DMC world and master
In fact, this Dante isn't Dante. He's Douche-Tay.
new different tactics of gameplay within that same world. In what way, shape, or form is that a negative thing? Dante and the DMC franchise needed to feel like they evolved from console generation to console generation, and while DMC Devil May Cry changes a lot from the original, it itself is wonderful. The sad truth is, if you called the game something stupid like Angels and Demons, The Reckoning, or whatever you want, everyone out there would have loved it. But the fact that it was a DMC game, people got mad because
Even though I'm just going to handle this game through denial because I don't even consider it to be a game. DMC, Devil May Cry, and game should not be in the same sentence. Sorry, man.
original things were changed or different, and they thought it was horrible. Well, you're looking at something to hate because you're looking for something.
Well, okay, it is horrible, but despite its enjoyment, it's a pointless remake. And it's trying to bribe players to buy it and keep it, and not trade it in after they're done with it, or bring it back to the rental store or Redbox or what have you.
To hate instead of just enjoying something that's meant to be enjoyed. Sometimes you just gotta play games to have fun. You remember that sometimes, don't you, Internet?
Yes, there's a way to have fun with this game. Problem is, it feels pointless when the originals are just fine the way they are. Well, except for DMC2. DMC2 sucks, and it's lazy. Its bosses are equally lazy and easy, especially with recycled old bosses show up in DMC2. But that was meant to be a Devil May Cry game. Based on what this game presents us with a different look and feel to Dante, as well as different look and feel to mostly everything, this wasn't meant to be a Devil May Cry game. The enemies aren't even designed well enough to be for this to be considered a Devil May Cry game. I don't buy it. Just because, you could still have fun with it if you just give it more of a chance. And, well, yeah, if you don't consider it a Devil May Cry game, you can have fun with the game. But the fact that they tried to market it as, a DMC game, that's the problem here.
Objection, Your Honor! I was trying to use logic and research to squash my points.
Order, Internet! Your fundamental disregard for the etiquette in this courtroom is giving you a big old bag overruled. All right, Beerman, what do you got?
Let's take a second and look at DMC Devil May Cry outside of the context of the rest of the games. Would you still hate on it so much if it weren't a linked installment in an established franchise? If you look at it objectively, definitive edition or no, DMC Devil May Cry is actually a pretty cool concept for a game in its own right. Also, it's a little more realistic. Why shouldn't Ninja Theory have tried to do something a little more relatable to the world we live in? I mean, they could have just pumped out another cookie-cutter franchise pleaser, but...
Well, here's the thing. Something doesn't need to be relatable for it to be good. Dante, regardless of whether he's relatable or not, is still a badass character. Relatability is not always a good way to go about things. Neither is realism. It's good to have some realism, but if you overdo it, then it's a problem. There's some realism that's annoying. That's where this game gets it wrong. So, yeah, I'm sorry, man. We don't play something like this for relatable characters. Bayonetta, from her own games, she's not relatable to everyone. So, hell, she's more badass than most real life, in fact, pretty much anyone in real life. So, it doesn't really make much sense.
But they really tried to do something different here. Something that pays homage to original games while simultaneously taking players into new and uncharted territories, with visuals, mechanics, and gameplay.
Yeah, but using the DMC franchise just makes it look like a bad thing to do. I'm sorry. If you want to make your own game, make your own fucking game. Don't try and attach it to another franchise where it does not belong. I'm sorry, man.
I, for one, refuse to fault them for that, and I think they did a very good job. Innovation is key to the future in every industry. Yeah.
Jirard, you're too fucking nice. I'm sorry, dude. I mean, I'm sorry. No.
Yes, it's important to remember your roots and where you came from, but it's also good to know that change is sometimes great. Give it a shot.
But you have to understand that it depends on how you change. Change isn't always made for the better. That's the problem here. You're not understanding that.
Be surprised how change can grow on you.
Never have I, nor this court, ever been subject to such wild, pathetic, and logical blasphemings in my courtroom.
My courtroom.
Whatever! DMC Devil May Cry is filled with about as much substance as a Dante's My Chemical Romance haircut. This game is guilty of sucking pucks and you know it.
Sucking pucks?
Sucking pucks.
Sucking pucks.
Sucking pucks.
Okay there, sports fan. Just hold up 1 second. Devil May Cry is an awesome game, and the whole 7 people out there who played it will
Yeah, the original is good. Not this one. No.
definitely agree with me. Why don't you go back to streaming ESPN 24/7 for the next 24/7, huh?
I will, because there's a lot of sports going on right now. It's fall, huh?
Ooh,
Oktoberfest.
Sports.
Ooh, I better stop this before it gets too bad even for YouTube. So, who'd you think was the winner? Are you a DMC loyalist, or are you part of this whole Ninja Theory Rebirth thing?
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go with the DMC loyalist portion. I'm sorry. DMC is a good franchise, and this reboot, no. I mean, or remake of the first game, as much as it is liked, is also extremely hated. And it's not Dante. I'm sorry. It's not Devil May Cry. It's its own game that just so happens to be a remake of the first Devil May Cry. It doesn't work. No matter what it does, it doesn't work. It should have, been its own game. That's what I'm saying. That's really what it should have been. It can be fun, yes. It is. I would know. I beat it. And played everything it has to offer. So, all I can tell you is skip DMC Devil May Cry and instead play the original. Or DMC 3 or DMC 4. I would say DMC 2, but that's only for like a beer and pizza night or, for lulz. It really depends. But this is the one DMC game that pretty much everyone hates. I mean, I'm sorry. It doesn't work. I mean, sure, Dante looks a little bit better here than he does in DMC 2, but that's not saying much. He may, at some points, be funnier than he is in DMC 2 here, but that doesn't mean anything. This game still sucks. And that is my point. DMC 2 and this reboot apparently are both bad, but the reboot is worse because, well, it chooses to not be itself. Instead, it chooses to be a Devil May Cry game. It's not a Devil May Cry game. I don't care what anyone says. That's my final point. Okay? And I've ranted for long enough. And that's pretty much it, guys. How do you feel about DMC Devil May Cry or whatnot? Comment down below. Anywho, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next videos. Stay batty, my friends.